Do you know, I think they were impressive, especially because when all the Kane talk was happening at the start of the season, a lot of people were writing them off saying, without a striker, they won't be able to do what they did last season again. But then fast forward, and they've done it again. And to add to it, they scored more goals this season with someone like Jack Grealish who hasn't performed to his best. So they somehow got better in a time when everyone, well, not everyone, but most people anticipate they'd be worse. And I think Liverpool being so good caught some people off guard, with United being as bad as well. So to then end up like being in a place where Chelsea seemed like they were going to do it, then Liverpool didn't lose a game for a long time, and then for City to reach the summit and then spend as much time there as they did, I think you got to say it's impressive. Like, the league is always very, very hard to win, whether you're playing against Liverpool or whether you're playing against a team fighting for the lives down at the bottom. You don't just play all your games at home. You play those games away. You play against the professionals who, they might not be as talented as you are, but they have enough talent to be able to beat you on any given week. So they deserve a ton of credit for it. These Premier Leagues matter. Like, you look at a club the size of Liverpool and the players and stuff that they've had, and they've won Champions League, but until they've only won one league title, it's not necessarily because they've been bad. It's because at times other people have been better. It's a hard thing to do, which is why not many teams have done it. So it's very impressive. How long it'll last for, I'm not sure, but it makes for great competition for the next year for teams who want to step up, because the bar's been set. So obviously City winning titles, but Liverpool, they're right there with them. Liverpool and City going forward, they're the bar, and teams are trying to figure out ways to reach that level, because that's how they talk about it now. They don't say we want to try and win a Premier League next season. It's like we want to catch up to City and Liverpool, because they have been so good. So for City to end up being on the right side of that again, it's very impressive, because it's Liverpool side and Liverpool squad and just the club in general. They're very, very good, and little by little I think City are starting to create their own legacy, and maybe in 20, 30 years' time, maybe they'll be spoken about in the same way Liverpool are today. I think there are people who like Pep and people who don't, and depending on which worldview you have, dictates what you'll say about, say, the way the Champions League goes. Because if you want to be realistic about it, the Champions League is a very hard thing to win, a very hard place to get to, because you think about all the teams that are around Europe who would think that they should be at the top table within European football, but only one team can do it. But then as soon as I say that, because I'm associated with City, I sound like I'm an apologist, but I'm not trying to be an apologist. It's the Champions League. This is literally the thing I've watched for all my life. But then when you come down to the league situation, it's no fluke to win it that many times. You can't be lucky to win a Premier League. He's been a very, very special and consequential manager as far as Premier League history goes, and the manner in which they've done it, it's different. I love it. It's different to the Liverpool philosophy. It's different to the Chelsea philosophy. But he brings out the best in those players, and the standards, it's obscene. I think it was 91 points or 92 points for this year for the title. If those are numbers you have to hit to win a Premier League title, and you're doing it, then you're incredible. People might not like him, but at the end of the day, he's brought success, and they've had money to be able to bring players in. But with the players that have been brought in, it's a bit revisionist in my opinion, because the players now look incredible, but when they were first signed, the vast majority of them, nobody was thinking this is the player that's going to change everything for City and then become as good as they are. They've developed as individuals, developed as a collective, and I think they've developed a lot of that due to the fact that the manager and the infrastructure they have around them. Yeah, it should be good, but it's not necessarily just from a City perspective. I think he's just one of the biggest talents in world football, and he seems like he's got the attributes which would suit the Premier League. First, it's good finish, all that stuff, the basics, but he's strong, he's quick, he's good in the air. As far as prototypical strikers in the Premier League that will be successful, you'd want to be having those. You're not going to look at his attributes and think, he's probably a bit too tall, he's a bit too quick, or he's a bit too good in the air. He looks like he could be really good. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits, firstly, into the Man City team, and secondly, how he fits into the Premier League. Can he match that mentality? There's no guarantee he'll be successful, but does he understand what it is to be travelling away to a team whereby they won't really try and play a ton of football? Because overall in Germany, more teams try and play. It's more about that style. But in England at times, it's just whatever winning football is what you just come across. So what would be like when people put a target on his back as well? Because that's Erling Haaland, the guy who everyone's been talking about for the last 3-4 years. So yeah, I'm excited to see how he does. I hope he does well. He seems like, from what I hear, he seems like a kid who's desperate to get better all the time. He's got ambitions in his future, thinking, I want to try and be in a conversation for Ballon d'Ors. Well, welcome. See if you can do it. This is a great league for you to be able to do so, because there are a lot of eyes on it. So can you perform? Because at Dortmund are a very big club, big successful club, but like Bundesliga's Bayern Munich's, the Premier League's here. Everyone's going to be watching you. First, because you're a big star. Secondly, because you're a Man City. Can you actually be successful? And I think if you can, then I think it'll make for good viewing for pretty much everyone except for whoever he's playing against. The thing about this, that like, there's two sides to this coin. So one thing that some people say, they say like player X, player Y, player Z wants to leave, and then it gets a lot of hostility. But the reality of the situation, which is the other side of the coin, is that players want to play more. So they don't want to leave, they just want to play more. So if a club say that we can't play you more, then you look for somewhere where you can play more, because at the end of the day, a career is not a lifetime, and you can't afford to really miss out on tons of football. So for someone like Gabriel Jesus, like, he's been rotated in and out consistently over the last 3-4 seasons. He's never really been able to, whether it's due to Sergio Aguero or, you know, them playing with different sorts of systems or the quality that they have, he's never really been in a position whereby he could play maybe 30 plus league games in a season, you know, finish with 40 games in total and stuff like that. And if somebody's offering that to him, it's a hard thing to say no to, because you understand the success that can come if you stay at City. But you end up watching a lot of that success from the bench and things like that. And that's the way they do things, that's the system, that's the rotation. But not every club does rotation. And I think if someone believes in you and says, this is what we want from you, and Man City, to be fair, have been good with people who want to leave, then fair enough. But like, I wouldn't chastise anybody for wanting to play more football, because at the end of the day, like, if you're not doing it, it's actually a tough spot to be in regards to success. You want to play, because before you know it, like, your opportunities will disappear. No, that's, you know, people are perfectly entitled to their opinion, but like, recency bias is definitely a thing. Like, for City, so this is 10 years on. They've won 5 league titles through those years, and this was potentially for the 6th. And like, you're 2 down, 20 minutes to go, whatever it is. But now on the field, you've got Kevin De Bruyne, Ilkay Gundogan, Raheem Sterling, Phil Foden, Gabriel Jesus. Like, you've got a lot of really, really good players. So the idea of scoring, and you had Premier League top scorers as well, because they ended up finishing with 99 goals, so they nearly hit a century of goals. So I don't think it's as dramatic, just because obviously they're down and you feel they're sort of like, oh my God, they've messed it up. But you think about it, when was the last time they messed it up in the league like that? So then there's the first goal, and then people start expecting a second goal. Then after the second goal, people are expecting a third goal, as I'm sure you probably noticed within the space. And then there's 10 minutes to go. So is it that dramatic when you can spend 10 minutes time wasting? For me, I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. So, you know, that's their opinion. That's perfectly fair. And, you know, the high of that day certainly was there. But like with the Aguero one, that was the first. So to say the first feels like the 6th, or rather the 6th feels better than the first, I don't know, because that first was a very, very, very long time coming, and most people thought they'd never see the day. So yeah, I don't. It's dramatic, but I don't think it's as dramatic as that other one. Again, that's a good question, because I think I could have achieved more, but then in the same breath, I played over 400 games for 4 clubs across 16 years. That's incredible. You know what I mean? Sometimes when I look back and really think about it, it is incredible. I was captain of the side for 3-4 years. I'm well respected everywhere that I go, and welcome back everywhere that I've been. And I know tons of people that aren't. You know, when people see me, whether it's at City, it's at Sunderland, it's at QPR, it's at Real Salt Lake, like, people are happy to see me because they liked me as a player and they love me as a person. So that makes me feel immensely proud to be able to do it for that long. So, you know, if you want to talk about medals and stuff, I'd be the same as 99% of other players who wish they would have won more medals. But in terms of having impact, I think I had real impact. And as a consequence, if you ask most people, if not all people, what they think about me as a player and as a person, you'll only hear positive things. So looking back, I have to say it was a success. Nah, absolutely not, no. Absolutely not. So the thing I'm somebody who takes in the whole picture. I'm not somebody who believes that when you get to the training ground, it's like the training ground fairies that bring your boots to your locker and stuff like this, and your kit's somehow magically folded. Like, I know it's the kit man, I know it's the people doing the washing, I know that the food's coming from this person, I know the security guard does this. Like, I know the overall structure of it all. So with that, you then know that the manager is in there for longer hours, making less money, having more stress, and having less job security. And I think to myself, like, as a 35-year-old, you see people like going up to like Roy Hodgson's age. Do I want to do this for 40 years? Do I want to live my life again doing this thing? And you can have an impact, but like, success is relative. But for most managers, like, it always seems to lead in sackings and having to move around here, there, and wherever. And I'm trying to settle down in one place. I'm trying to enjoy that feeling of knowing that this place is home, instead of home being wherever I can find work. So, absolutely not. I've got no interest in doing it whatsoever, but I still think I can have an impact within football clubs, whether it's mentoring, whether it's just speaking with people in general, or just being inside. Like, I work for Manchester City's charity, City in the Community. That has impact as well. And it gives me a chance to be able to help the local community, which are all across the city, which I've been a part of, for most of my life. So, yeah, the management side of things, no, the guys that choose to do it, fair enough. But again, like I said earlier, I've never introduced myself as a player because football isn't necessarily part of my identity. So to feel that I have to stay in football, it's not for me. And I made a point of that by not doing any coaching badges. I made the call from very early doors. There's not going to be any thought of, well, I've got the badges and I might do this. It's like, nah, I'm retired and I'm officially not qualified to be able to do said job. So I'm going to go and do something else. Do you know what I think's really interesting? But I think, and I could be wrong here, but like, Real Madrid is still trying to create the Super League. But then there was a lot of people who were like really happy with Real Madrid winning everything. And I thought that's really interesting. A year ago, like, you were writing about this, and Florentino Perez was like the biggest villain in Europe for a while until Infantino spoke again or something. So. It is an interesting spot, but it's nothing surprising. Like, we didn't arrive here by accident. Money is such a big driver within football. That's what it is. I think if people believe that it hasn't been the case for the last 20, 30 years, I think you're ultimately missing the point, because you can see it all around. And even, say, from the money side of things as well, like, we believe it to be a meritocracy where your reward is, if you're at the top, you're good and all that stuff. But if a team is down near the bottom and they get taken over by a billionaire, what's the expectation that they'll stay down the bottom, or they believe that it should be up near the top? It's this paradox within people's minds. So football's just kind of the same, except more people are reporting on it now. So there's more stuff to sort of be outraged about. But is it going to change? I don't think so, because for change to happen, it almost has to, like, the people who could change it, they're in charge. They're the ones who are already in power. And for some of those people within football, it's power that sort of drives everything. Someone might come in and be the new head of UEFA, the new head of FIFA, but that position commands so much like power that in the end, they'll do the same things, because that's the infrastructure, that's the way it's been built right now. And you can choose to hate it and so on, but for me, like, I watch the World Cup because I love the World Cup, and I know that people playing the World Cup who will be like, probably see that some of their highest achievements in their careers, and we could wish for a more moral sport, all across the board with all different types of ownership groups. But at the end of the day, this is what it is, and we don't really have a say in terms of determining which way the game's going to go.